You've probably heard horror stories about kidney stones, a pain so intense it's often compared to childbirth. But what if there was a clear blueprint to prevent them from ever forming in the first place? Well, that's exactly what we're going to decode.
First, let's just get a sense of how big a deal this is. A full 10% of Americans will develop a kidney stone at some point in their life. And get this, that's a huge leap from just 4% back in the 1970s. This isn't some rare, bizarre condition anymore. It's a major and growing health problem.
And for every single person in that 10%, the experience is, well, it's unforgettable, and not in a good way. This quote really says it all. When that's the comparison, you know we're talking about an extreme level of pain. And all of it is caused by tiny crystals that can start smaller than a single grain of sand.
But you know, just getting through the pain of passing one stone is only half the battle. The real, hidden threat, and the reason we're here, is that they have this nasty habit of coming back. And that's what makes a prevention strategy so incredibly important. Yeah, just look at this. This really changes how you have to think about it. A kidney stone is rarely a one-and-done event. For so many people, it's the beginning of a chronic issue. A 50% chance of getting another one? That is literally a coin flip on whether you'll have to go through all that pain again.
But here's the crucial part. This is not a life sentence. You can absolutely break the cycle. The entire strategy for preventing kidney stones really boils down to 3 foundational pillars. If you can understand these, you can take back control.
Okay, so let's dive into our first pillar, diet. This is the bedrock of prevention, but it's also where you'll find the most common and the most dangerous myths. It's time to crack the diet code.
So this is probably the single biggest myth we need to bust right now. Most stones are made of something called calcium oxalate. So your brain immediately goes, okay, cut out calcium, right? Wrong. It's actually the opposite. Here's how it works. Dietary calcium, the kind from food, not pills, actually binds with those pesky oxalates in your gut. It grabs onto them and carries them safely out of your body before they can ever reach your kidneys and start making crystals.
So if calcium from your food isn't the main villain, who is? Well, meet the real troublemakers. High sodium forces your kidneys to push more calcium into your urine. High animal protein ramps up uric acid, which is another crystal-forming substance. And high sugar, especially fructose you find in sodas and processed foods, just wrecks your mineral metabolism. You put them all together, and you've got the perfect chemical storm for a kidney stone to form.
So here's your playbook, a clear, actionable plan. It's about what you stop doing and what you start doing. First, the 2.5-liter rule. And listen, the goal isn't to drink that much, but to produce that much urine. Dilution is the solution. Second, add citrate. Just squeezing some lemon or lime into your water acts like a natural shield against crystals. And finally, the pairing rule. This is your everyday defense. Eating high oxalate foods like spinach or nuts, always have them with a source of calcium, like cheese or yogurt.
Okay, on to our second pillar, and this one has a really fascinating twist. We all know exercise is key to good health, but when it comes to kidney stones, well, it's a bit of a double-edged sword.
So let's start with the good news. Regular, moderate activity, think a brisk walk or a light bike ride, can lower your risk of forming a stone by up to 31%. It just helps your body handle calcium and other minerals better, which takes a load off your kidney.
And this is where the paradox really kicks in. Because if moderate exercise is good, then you'd assume that really intense, vigorous exercise has to be even better. But the research shows something completely different, and it's a really critical distinction.
Just take a look at the data here. One study found that the people with the highest amount of vigorous physical activity actually had a nearly 50% higher risk of kidney stones. So what in the world is going on? It all comes down to one word: dehydration. When you do intense workouts, you sweat a lot, and that creates highly concentrated urine. And that is the perfect breeding ground for crystals. And researchers even figured out the threshold. The risk doesn't just go up a little, it shoots up once daily intense exercise crosses that 4-hour mark. Now the takeaway here is not to stop exercising, it's that you have to be absolutely meticulous about matching your hydration to your intensity, especially on those long, hard days.
All right, let's move to our third and final pillar. And this is the one that gets ignored the most when we talk about kidney health. See, your kidneys don't just work, they work on a very precise schedule.
You know how your brain has an internal clock that makes you sleepy? Well, your kidneys have their own circadian rhythm too.
It's a 24-hour cycle that controls what they're doing, and during deep, restorative sleep, they are performing critical jobs related to balancing your fluids and hormones. When you disrupt that rhythm, there are direct consequences.
So how exactly does poor sleep lead to stones? Well, first off, it disrupts a key hormone that normally tells your body to make less, more diluted urine at night. That's why you can wake up with really concentrated urine. Second, it's strongly tied to things like sleep apnea, where a lack of oxygen puts immense stress on the kidneys. And finally, poor sleep just creates a state of chronic inflammation, which throws off that delicate chemical balance your kidneys are always trying to maintain.
Okay, we've decoded all 3 pillars. Now, let's put it all together into a simple, unified plan that you can actually use.
This is it, your personal action plan. For diet, the name of the game is low sodium and always pairing those oxalate foods with a calcium source. For exercise, focus on consistency over brutal intensity and always make hydration your top priority. And for sleep, protect your kidney's natural clock with a consistent 7 to 8 hours a night. These are the fundamental habits for prevention. So you see, prevention isn't some big secret. It's a system. The blueprint is right here in your hands, built on these 3 pillars of diet, exercise, and sleep. The only question left is, which pillar will you start rebuilding today?